Good morning. It is Saturday, May 18th, 2019, and I'm making a video about an open letter to my grandmother. And I'm making this public because I haven't really made a lot of videos remotely recently about what's been going on with my family regarding their feelings around my transition, the familial aspects of my life that I have lost, and those that have been made stronger. 2 nights ago, I had the urge come over me after watching, honestly, and I swear by this, I was watching Gilmore Girls' Year in a Life. And there's, without doing spoilers, because many of you know how I feel about that, there's a part of the movies, the 4-part series, where the eldest daughter, who's asked to reminisce at a funeral, can't say anything really positive, and eventually goes on a literal and figurative journey to try to unlock a lot of answers that are keeping them stuck within their life, and one of them is the relationship with her parents, and she gets over this beautiful view, and she has this whole realization of a memory that's very beautiful and positive, and yet had an initial sad storyline. She remembers it, she calls her mom, and she shares the tale, and I literally paused what I was watching to take out my phone and start to formulate an email to my grandmother. To backtrack, when I first came out as trans, my grandmother did not react well. A lot of people in my family didn't react well for various different reasons. They might feel like they acted as best as they could, or that they acted well based on what they're capable of, and that may be true, may not be true, but overall consensus was not fantastic, and in particular with her. And my grandmother and I were extremely close for my whole life. This is my mom's mom. I looked up to her and adored her pretty much more than almost anybody in the universe. I was very, very close with her, and I almost cared more about her opinion than my parents, just to give you an idea. And then when she was told without my control about my top surgery, that's when things really hit the fan. And she wrote me a letter where she compared my top surgery to the mutilization of young women in Africa, which happens to be something that I find extremely unacceptable, horrifying, terrible, traumatic, and have always really, really cared about that issue. And to make a comparison of something that is abusive and taking control of someone else's body and freedom versus me getting top surgery to save my life, to create freedom, not mutilization. I mean, it's the second worst thing that anyone's ever said to me still to this day. And I remember vaguely the rest of the letter said, but ultimately not much. Probably blocked it out, or it's just not as horrible. And our relationship totally severed at that point. And I thought I was never going to get over it. And I've seen the whole Gilmore Girls series a zillion times. I've probably rewatched the series more than anything else I've ever watched in my life, honestly. And I was going through a rewatch and watching it all, and that's really what it took for me. Everyone has what turns the lights on for them or makes them realize like they don't want to regret not telling someone something that they care about. And I decided very strongly in that moment that I wasn't going to live with regrets anymore. that I was going to confront her. She's old and she's doing well and she's, impenetrable, but ultimately, life has a span, and I didn't want her to go forward with life, and I didn't want me to go forward with life with this distraction. That was the big picture, was that lately I've been extremely distracted, and a lot of it is hormonal from my surgery and everything starting to try to level out. But really it was, I don't know, I digress. The point is that I went and I wrote a letter, and I'm sitting there sobbing, and the first thing I did was I opened my phone and I just put her email address in, and I stared at it for like 2 minutes at least, trying to figure out what I was even gonna write. Then I did several rewrites. Easily 20-30 minutes go by, and I finally have something solid, and I'm reading it over and over, and I'm trying to think to myself, what am I going to do? Am I going to delete this? Am I going to send this to my therapist and delete it? Am I going to forget I ever wrote this? Am I going to send it? What are the consequences? Do I care about what the consequences are? My biggest fear immediately was that this was going to give her a heart attack. I certainly don't want that. But at the same time, I realized that anything can happen at any time, and I would have never forgiven myself if I didn't take the opportunity I had to say something. So although I am going to get most likely a large amount of negative feedback from family for sharing all of this, I don't care, because this is a vulnerable video that I need to make so that way others who have not been accepted from people that they care about can understand they're not alone, that you can have the strength and the courage to step forward and to say what you need to say, that you deserve to be heard, that you deserve to be loved and accepted unconditionally, especially by your family. And I was living just in utter distraction, and I needed to take the biggest burden in my life and air it out. And so I did. I'm not going to read her responses. We've had quite a few back and forths. I'm not going to do that because I feel like that's an element of privacy on someone else's account that I'm not willing to share. But I am going to read to you the first letter that I wrote, and I'm going to read to you the most recent message that I wrote. You don't want to apologize, so there's no relationship. You simply don't care enough to apologize. If you actually loved me, your pride wouldn't matter. Just know that you could have done something to fix it, and you chose not to. I'm sorry you're missing out on your grandson. I have no intention of hiding that we wrote emails. Being open about my transition is what helps people, just as it helped me. So, spoiler, that's the last letter that I wrote. So obviously it didn't go well. My intention was to let her know how I was feeling and that she could have improved upon our relationship if she wanted, and that I had gotten to a point where I had forgiven her. Otherwise, that I love her and I've always loved her for who she is, but that I needed an apology to move forward, and that was my line and my barrier. The first email I wrote: I'm sorry you can't love me enough for who I truly am to apologize for the absolutely horrible things you said in your letter. I will not live the regret of not saying something. I always loved you, and you were enough. It was made clear to me recently you haven't been aware of our lack of relationship, but it ended with the fact that years later you still haven't apologized. I know that you probably feel that you can't, or I don't deserve one, but I do. It's about to be the 50th anniversary of Stonewall this coming month, and I'm hosting an event, a day of healing, for those in my community for Pride. I don't want anyone or anything holding me back. This no longer will. You should know that I've never been stronger, I've never been happier, I've never been more proud than I am as a man and a person I've become. You should know that this was something you were wrong about, and that I forgive you for not knowing everything. but I do not forgive you for your letter because I simply cannot with a lack of apology. I have tried, and I just don't feel I have to try anymore. I don't need it to be who I am because I'll always be me. That's the crux of it. I wrote these letters completely from my heart. It took me several years to gain the strength to do it, but I've said what I need to say, and I don't expect her to come around. She clearly isn't going to. She's not going to apologize to me, and we have no relationship, but we had a whole relationship prior, and it's on her. It's not on me. And if you are sitting there wondering whether you deserve to be loved, whether you deserve support, whether you deserve to be who you are, you do. And you don't need anybody's validation or permission ever. And if you have people who are not standing behind you, who are not true allies, you do not owe them your attention and time. You do not owe them your compassion if they are not going to be compassionate to you back. This isn't an issue of two wrongs don't make a right. This is an issue of someone being themselves and their family not loving them for who they are. And you're not harming anyone. You're trying to live your life. You're trying to be your best self. You're trying to be a better person. You're trying to be happy. You're trying to be healthy. These are all things that we deserve. Every human deserves health and happiness. Many won't get it. Choose your health and happiness first so that way you can go on and bring that energy and pay it forward to those who truly deserve it. Don't even think for a second just because you're related to someone that it means automatically that they're your family, that they've got your back. They don't have to. They have their own mind, they have their own heart, they have their own values, they have their own morals, they have their own ideas and suggestions for how you should live your life. Family can be chosen. It doesn't have to be blood. Blood being thicker than water is merely science. It's not founded for everyone. It's not a sound way to move about life. Pick your family, whether they're blood related or not, by those who are truly going to give a two-way street relationship, something that's not one-sided, and someone who's going to love you unconditionally. If you don't feel like you have family, know that I'm your family. I will always be here for you. I will always love you for exactly who you are. You are perfect. You are absolutely perfect, and you are beautiful in every way. Go forth with your head held high. You've got this, and I'm right here with you. Thank you for watching.